Hello there, Stevos. Welcome back to another episode of Steve's Movie Wrap Up right here on my YouTube channel, SteveOfficial. This is episode 99, by the way. Now, episode 99 was supposed to be released yesterday, which was Saturday the 13th of June 2026 at 6 PM UK time. However, you guys are watching episode 99 right now, and the reason being is because I was meant to upload episode 99 yesterday, 13th of June 2026, and then today, Sunday the 14th of June 2026, was when I was meant to upload my 100th episode of the movie wrap-up. However, though, this week I have not watched any brand new movies. I've just mostly been rewatching the Toy Story franchise. I rewatched Toy Story on Friday, I watched Toy Story 2 and 3 yesterday, and then probably once I've finished wrapping up this episode of the movie wrap up, I'm probably gonna go onto Disney Plus and rewatch Toy Story 4 just in time so that when it gets to next week I can then go and watch Toy Story 5 in cinemas, which does get released next Friday the 19th of June. So anyway, so episode 100 is going to be coming up next week here on my YouTube channel, SteveOfficial. It is going to be coming up on, when will it be? The Sunday the 21st of June 2026. So there we go, that's when that's coming up. In the meantime though, I am going to go through the movies I have watched, the new movies that I've watched last week. Well, I say last week, it was the week before last. I've been super busy, guys, okay? I've been super busy. I've not had time to shoot a movie wrap-up and then edit it on my iMac and get it out to you guys up until now. So, without further ado, let's just cut the chitter-chatter and let's just get started with the movie wrap-up. This is Steve's Movie Wrap-Up, episode 99, right here on my YouTube channel, SteveOfficial. The first movie we'll be reviewing in this episode is Undertone. So the first movie I have watched is Undertone, which I gave 2.5 stars over on Letterboxd. Undertone is a horror movie that was released in cinemas earlier this year, which sadly I didn't get to see due to the cinema only having limited screenings, which were pretty late, so I had to wait for this to come out on streaming, and then I brought it to buy and keep on digital. So what did I think of Undertone? I thought this was rather effective at times. Undertone is about a podcaster who does a paranormal podcast with a co-host, and for the majority of the film we see her sat down at a table doing a recording of a podcast with her co-host who is on the phone, so we don't see the co-host of the podcast in the film, but we hear his voice throughout though. But these two podcasters do a podcast. There is a listener who sends in these creepy audio files for the podcast host to listen to whilst doing their show. But the more deeper they dive into the audio files, the more creepier they become. And by the end, they probably would wish that they had never took a deeper dive into the audio files in the first place. Now, while there isn't any blood or gore in this horror film, the horror film itself is more to do with sound. That is what is the most effective part of the film, and the sounds are rather creepy. Probably would have been more effective if I had seen this one earlier this year in the cinema, had they have had more showings during the day, but nevertheless though, I did enjoy this movie. Is this going to be a film I will remember watching in a few days? Well, yes and no. Yes, because of the sounds from this film, and no, because I just feel as though it would just be rather forgettable after a while. But that being said though, the running time does clock in at 1 hour 34 minutes. However, as well, this film does just end abruptly, which is also rather annoying. So we don't really know what happens to the main character as the film cuts to black. Does the main character survive? Does the main character die? I have no idea, unless they want us, the audience, to have our own interpretation of how the film ends. Properly, I guess. I will just go with the main character survives. And speaking of the main character, by the way, she does have a storyline going on at the side of the film, as we see her tending to her sick mother who is bedbound. So we do see her looking after her mother when she isn't doing the podcast with her co-host. But also we do see a lot of flickering lights in the house as well throughout the movie. So I am going to assume that the entity that was in the audio files that the podcast hosts were listening to while recording their podcast entered the main character's home. Either that or the mother was possessed. Is Undertone a horror movie I would recommend watching? Yeah, for sure. It is still a decent watch and worth watching. And yes, I would be happy to watch this again. However, I am not in a rush to watch this again anytime soon. But I do appreciate the movie for what it is worth. But Undertone is available to buy and rent now on digital platforms. Ladies first. Next up is Ladies First, which I gave 2 stars on Letterboxd. Sacha Baron Cohen and Rosamund Pike star in Ladies First. Now, part of me was looking forward to seeing this film because the film stars Sacha Baron Cohen, who has starred as Borat, Ali G and Bruno in the past, and also he played a role in the Amazon Prime film Balls Up, which I reviewed earlier this year as well. And I did think he was pretty funny in that film. So there was a part of me that was looking forward to watching this. I didn't realise that Rosamund Pike would star in this movie until I started watching it, and then instantly recognised it was her. And also narrating the story of the movie is Richard E. Grant, who also does make the odd cameo here and there throughout the film, as well as he plays the character of Pigeon Man. Basically, a homeless man who has a bunch of pigeons on him. Look, I will be honest. At the start of the film, I did find it this funny until about 10 or 15 minutes of the film. Then it became not funny. And also it seemed like the film was being more misogynistic after the first 15 minutes of the film than it was being in the first 15 minutes of the film. So I can see that they are missing the point of the entire film itself. Maybe the film would have worked a lot better in the early 80s compared to what it does today. Yes, I get it. It was trying to sell the story of female empowerment, but I genuinely think it was missing the whole point, and I can see this being more offensive than it should be, particularly for the female audience watching this as well. It does come with the running time clocking in at 1 hour 33 minutes. Is this a movie I am going to remember watching? I don't think it will be. Is this a movie I will revisit / rewatch again? I doubt it. And is this a comedy movie that I would recommend watching? I wouldn't say so. I think Netflix has better comedy movies than this one. For me, this movie is probably going to be a watch once and once only. But Ladies First is streaming now on Netflix worldwide. Office Romance. Next up is Office Romance, which I gave 2 stars on Letterboxd. Office Romance stars Brett Goldstein, Jennifer Lopez, Tony Hale, Betty Golpin and Jodie Whittaker in this new rom-com that has been recently added to Netflix. So what did I think of this? As someone who does enjoy a rom-com from time to time, this for me is a little bit of a weaker rom-com. Don't get me wrong. Was there chemistry between Jennifer Lopez and Brett Goldstein's characters? Yes, of course, and it doesn't feel forced. However, how raunchy is this? Well, surprisingly, not that much, to be honest. And given the fact that Netflix has branded this film as NSFW, which stands for Not Suitable for Work, for those that didn't know what that meant, well, this film is rather tame. Not that I want to watch a movie while I am at work. Besides, with the job that I do, I don't have time to sit and watch a movie on my break. But unless the movie was about 15 minutes long. But I thought the performance in this were pretty decent. There was a little bit of comedy that came mostly from Betty Golpin's character throughout the film. And of course there is some British humour in this as well, as the film is set in the UK, which is rather coincidental given the fact that I watched this straight after watching Ladies First on Netflix, which is also set in the UK as well. And can I ask, is this the first ever rom-com movie that uses the C word more than any other rom-com in the history of rom-coms? Because there is a scene where Brett Goldstein's character says that word an awful lot. Can we talk about Jodie Whittaker? Because, who, by the way, I may have a chance of meeting a little bit later on this year. And if I do meet her, I will ask her a question about acting alongside Brett Goldstein and Jennifer Lopez. But she was great in this. And given the fact that I haven't seen Jodie Whittaker in anything else other than when she played the 13th Doctor in Doctor Who a few years ago. It was kind of odd having her use a lot of swear words in her scenes. I am aware that she has been in some dramas before and after she starred in Doctor Who, and I've never seen them before. But Jodie Whittaker was also great in this as well. If you are looking for a new rom-com to watch, then I would recommend watching this. As for whether I would rewatch Office Romance again, I think so. However, I'm not in a rush to watch this again anytime soon. The running time does also clock in at 1 hour 34 minutes as well. But Office Romance is now streaming on Netflix worldwide. Remarkably Bright Creatures. Next up is Remarkably Bright Creatures, which I gave 3.5 stars over on Letterboxd. Well, I wasn't expecting this to be an emotional rollercoaster of a film, but it honestly was. Alfred Molina voices an octopus, the same Alfred Molina, who, by the way, played Dr. Octopus in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films, with Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. We also see Lewis Pullman and Sally Field star in this film as well, with Remarkably Bright Creatures being directed by Olivia Newman. So, what did I think of this? Well, as mentioned at the start of the review, the film is an emotional roller coaster. We have Sally Field playing a character who lost her son and is living alone, contemplating leaving a small town that she lives in. She works in an aquarium and happens to work as a cleaner and spends a lot of time during closing time talking to an octopus in a tank. And then you have Lewis Pullman playing a character whose mother passed away, who wasn't there for him as a child. He came to the small town to find his father, who he believes is filthy rich and wants 18 years of child support from him. He is also living in the camper van where his mother lived too. He manages to get a job at the aquarium, the same one where Sally Field's character works at, and they happen to share a bond. The film does clock in with a running time of 1 hour 54 minutes, and I will say that I appreciate the fact we got so much character development throughout the running time of this film. I thought it was really well shot at times. I feel as though this film did tug at the heartstrings as well. Is this a film I would recommend giving a watch? It has been on Netflix for the last few weeks, and if you haven't yet given this a watch, then I do recommend giving this a watch. Also, is this going to be a movie I would be happy to rewatch again in the future? For sure it would be. Definitely a movie I would be happy to watch again. But Remarkably Bright Creatures is now streaming on Netflix worldwide. Scary Movie. Next up is Scary Movie, or otherwise known as Scary Movie 6, which I gave 3 stars over on Letterboxd. So, Scary Movie 6, or otherwise known as Scary Movie, is safe to say back on form again. Look, I will be honest in this review here, but the film, like previous films in the franchise, doesn't take itself too seriously at all, and yes, this is a parody. There is some words which I don't think a lot of movie studios tend to use in this day and age, or because of racial reasons, but this movie uses some of those terms loosely. It does feel like a comedy film that has come straight from the early 2000s, to be honest, and I don't mind that at all. The parodies I thought was rather funny. Yes, they do mostly parody Scream 5 and a little bit of Scream 6 thrown in there as well. Carmen Electra does star in the opening sequence, just like she does in the original Scary Movie that came out back in the year 2000. However, though, there are some bits and pieces in this movie that is thrown in here that does feel like a bit of an SNL Saturday Night Live sketch, which I have heard other reviewers say the same thing, and I do agree with them on that. The movie does star Anna Faris, Marlon Wayans, Sean Wayans, pretty much the original cast from the first 2 Scary Movie films. They make a comeback in this alongside some new characters as well. We do also see some surprising cameos in this as well, which is good. I did enjoy Scary Movie. However, given that this is a horror comedy, there is a lot of horror movies that are parodied in this film from horror movies that have come out in recent years, such as Smile, The Substance, Weapons, and Sinners as well. I did think the Ghostface reveal in this film was rather better than the Ghostface reveal in the recent Scream 7 release, which again is another thing that I have seen other reviewers say when reviewing this film. Is Scary Movie 6 a film I would recommend watching? Well, if you have seen the first 5 films, then I would recommend giving this a watch. If you enjoy watching horror comedy films, then I would again recommend watching this. However, is Scary Movie 6 a film I would revisit, rewatch again? Yes, for sure it would be. Besides, I have got the first 5 films on digital, as so I will add the this one to the collection when this comes out on digital later this year. But right now though, Scary Movie, otherwise known as Scary Movie 6, is currently showing in cinemas and theatres worldwide. Backrooms. And finally this week I have watched Backrooms, which I've given 4 stars over on Letterboxd. So after only just watching the found footage short film on YouTube via Kane Parsons' YouTube channel Kane's Pixels about a week ago, or over a week ago at this point, I have finally watched the feature-length film that is titled Backrooms, which, by the way, the screening I saw this in was pretty packed out, with mostly people slightly younger than me. And how did I know that? Well, a few of them made the 6-7 joke just before the movie started. Also, side note, I was a little worried seeing this film, and it was more to do with the audience more than anything, because all throughout the trailers, the couple of rows back from where I was sat, they were talking and shouting across to one another, and I feared that they were going to be like this throughout the entire film and would have ruined my movie-going experience. But thankfully, though, as soon as the movie started, they quietened down. So onto the review itself for Backrooms. What did I think of this? Well, this was actually a solid and rather trippy film, and I am sure I have said this in my review for the short film about over a week ago, but this is one of those kind of trippy moments that we could only dream about, where we end up in this strange office type corridor place, and there is furniture stacked up on top of each other. There is various doors that lead to another room, that then there's a Christmas tree randomly put up in a room. Yeah, that happens in this film, by the way. Dialogue wise, I wasn't a fan of the use of dialogue, to be honest. The dialogue was messy in places and sometimes just didn't make any sense to me. But when we are in the Backrooms itself, though, it's just rather interesting and trippy, because you just expect the unexpected in this movie. This is the second YouTuber, by the way, who has debuted a feature-length movie in the cinema in the past month, with the first being Curry Barker with the successful movie Obsession, which in my books is still movie of the year, by the way. But with all these YouTubers making a lot of success with their directorial debuts at the box office, as a YouTuber myself, I am now left wondering whether I should make a feature-length movie and put it out in cinemas and theatres worldwide, and see if I can become another successful YouTuber who has broke box office records with a movie of my own. Well, I guess this YouTuber can dream. But would I recommend watching Backrooms? Well, if you enjoy weird, quirky, trippy movies, then you will have fun with this one. There is a few horror elements in this for us horror fans to love and appreciate as well. Is Backrooms a film I will be happy to revisit and rewatch again in the future? Yes, for sure it will be, and this will also be a movie I will purchase to buy and keep when it releases on digital platforms later this year. Backrooms is now showing in cinemas and theatres worldwide. And that is it for this episode of Steve's movie wrap up right here on my YouTube channel, Steve Official. If you have enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what movies you guys have watched this week, whether it's old, new, in cinemas, theatres, VHS, Blu-ray, DVD, 4K Ultra, and on streaming. Would love to know what movies you guys have watched in the comment section down below. And as always, if you are new around here and you like what you see, then feel free to hit that subscribe button down below to become a Steve-O. Of course, there is going to be another episode of Steve's Lens on Life. It's episode 4 being released tomorrow, Monday the 15th of June 2026. That's coming up at 6 PM UK time. Next episode of the movie wrap-up will be out next week, next Sunday, which will be the 21st of June 2026 at 6 PM UK time. And of course, it'll be my 100th episode as well. So expect me to talk about some new releases that I've gone to go and see in cinemas as well that have been released over the past week or so. Guys, thank you for watching. From me, it's goodbye. And I shall speak to you guys again in my next YouTube video.